In Exodus chapter 12 from verse 1 to 42, Exodus 12 from verse 1 to 42, it was a meal that ended the bondage of Israel. Bondage of 430 years. It was a meal that ended walking like an elephant and eating like a rat. Psalm 105 verse 37, Psalm 105 verse 37 says, when they were leaving Egypt, they came loaded with silver and gold. And you know what? There was not a single feeble one among them. A meal put an end to poverty, put an end to sickness, put an end to bondage. In 1 Kings chapter 17 from verse 8 to 24, 1 Kings 17 from verse 8 to 24, when Elijah arrived at the place of the widow of Zarephath, it was a meal that turned the tide for the widow. The last meal became the first. The last meal turned her destitution to continuous provision. The last meal invited God in so that death can be chased out of that family. A meal. In 2 Kings chapter 6, from verse 24 to 29, 2 Kings chapter 6, from verse 24 to 29. There was a meal that two parents can never forget. Things were hard. There was no food. They became, two women living together, became so hungry that the instinct of self-preservation that I spoke to you about some weeks ago led them to agreeing to kill one of their children and eat him. And then the second day they were to eat the second. And the instinct of self-propagation stepped in. The second woman went and hid her son. They can't forget that meal. There's no way they could forget. Why? Because it was the meal just before the siege was over. Because by the time you go to 2 Kings chapter 7 from verse 1 to the end, 2 Kings chapter 7 from verse 1 to the end, the siege was over the following day. I'm sure the woman whose son was eating would never forgive herself. Just one meal before help came. But when help came, the son that was dead can come back to life. In John chapter 13, from verse 2 to 30, John 13 from verse 2 to 30, the Lord and his disciples were at a meal. And it was at that meal that the Lord said, one of you will betray me. And everybody was saying, is it I? Is it I? And Peter signified, made a sign to John. If the Lord is not going to tell anybody, he will tell you. Ask him. And John said to the Lord, who is he? The Bible said, the Lord told John, I'm going to take a piece of bread, put in the stew, and put in the mouth of the traitor. The Bible said, as soon as Judas Iscariot ate that piece of bread, Satan possessed him. And his fate was sealed. Because the Lord said to him later, what you're about to do, go ahead and do it now. You've taken your last meal. A meal can seal your fate permanently. Could be for good or for bad. How can I ever forget the meal I was eating? As I sat in my little house in Elisha in those days, I've come to visit my mom, and I was eating pounded yam. And then I heard a car stop in the front of the house. And I said, who could that be? Because nobody was supposed to know I was there. And then the door opened, and Pastor Mulero came in. And I said, what's wrong? He said, finish your food. I said, no. Is Papa, is he not? He said, yes. Papa passed away last night. And I knew immediately that all my plans of becoming the youngest vice chancellor in Africa, they were over. He stepped in, I said, why are you here? He said, finish your food. I said, it is Papa, not so? He said, yes. Papa passed on last night. That was the beginning of becoming a full-time pastor. I can't forget that food. I didn't finish it. The muscle that was in my hand came back to the plate.